Okay, we're recording. My name is Ben Frank. I'm the president of Wildcats Hockey Club, a youth hockey club in Southern California. I also have our hockey director, Paul Esdale, on the line here as well. And we are a youth hockey club with operating club teams from ages 8U all the way up to 18 and under, from beginner levels to the elite AAA levels. And what we're doing here is we're starting a series of blabs, as they call it, where we get a chance to talk to some experts in sports science or player development around the country, and have the opportunity for us to learn as much as we can and to record that and document it, and also to share whatever we do learn and our discussions with whoever is interested in that and would like to follow along with that. So this is our first episode of an outside expert that's been willing to take some time with us, and we're happy to welcome Ken Martel, who's the technical director for the American Development Model at USA Hockey. He is also a he spent a lot of time as a national team coach with USA Hockey, and as well as the National Team Development Program, and a former NCAA Division I college coach and player who won a national championship, I believe. I don't know if he'll want us to tell the year. I think it was 1988.
Yeah. Right? Just a long time ago.
Sure. So I'm honored to have you. Ken's also he's well renowned in the world of sports science, and we're honored to have him on the call today. So welcome, Ken.
Thanks, Ben. Paul.
So what we want to do today, the focus today is, as I mentioned, Ken's the technical director of the American Development Model that's been around for about 6 years now, as far as officially launched. I'm sure the work's gone a lot longer than that. But wanted to get into really some of the basics and ask you some questions on that we can share with our members and with our staff, and of course anyone that wants to watch our blabs here, the basics of that the emergence of the American Development Model. So first, why don't we just start with even more basic, USA Hockey. What can you tell us about USA Hockey's role in the sport of hockey in the U.S. from top to bottom?
Well, we are the national governing body for ice hockey under the United States Olympic Committee through a charter from the United States Congress. It was started through the Ted Stevens Sports Act, and they recognize our organization as being the governance organization for hockey in the United States. And we cover everything from grassroots hockey up to the Olympic teams. But for the most part, we're a grassroots, volunteer-driven organization. We're made up of our membership, which are representatives from one end of the country to the other through our affiliates and our districts, and then at the national level. And as staff, we usually our job is to carry out the wishes of our board, and through that volunteer structure. So all of the NGBs, national governing bodies under the Olympic Committee, are all set up fairly similarly. And but that's who we are. We're sort of stewards of the sport of hockey, so to speak, and hopefully we leave the game better than we found it when we pass it along to others.
Right. And how long have you been at USA Hockey? You were at USA Hockey before you started your work with the American Development Model, correct?
Yeah, I've been working for USA Hockey now for, I guess, maybe longer than I probably initially planned. I'm about 17, 18 years now with the organization. I was about 8 years with our national team program in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I was there its second year of existence, and for 8 years as a national team coach, and then moved over to our national office to do player development, coach education, and then sort of take on this role as technical director for our American Development Model.
Great. And how did that even come up? So you're with the national teams and things, and then this whole other position, life calling, kind of came out of nowhere.
Well, it really stemmed from our national team program. We started that almost 20 years ago now. And when we started the program, it was a big leap to do something like that. But USA Hockey recognized that there was a void with kids in those teenage years, and wanted to do more. So invested some money and created our national team program. And we learned a bunch of different lessons along the way. The coaches that populate that program tend to be professional coaches from the NCAA levels, from a high performance level of sport. And when we started, I think we were still treating those teenage athletes like we were treating college and professional players. And what we quickly figured out was there are things that they need that are very different from pro and college players. And once we made some adaptations and started to adjust and think about things in a more age-appropriate manner, the program took off and had lots of success there. Globally, it's recognized as probably the premier development location for ice hockey for kids that are 16, 17 years old. It's funded by the National Hockey League, and they certainly like to see those results. But the lessons that we learned, it was, all right, if we're doing things differently at those ages, what is it that we maybe should be doing different at our youngest ages? And there were lots of indicators that while we might have been having some success on the international stage, really when you look at the number of players, number of kids we have in our sport, it was sort of obvious to those of us that were involved that, for the population, the resources, and everything that we have, there are countries out there that do a whole lot more with a whole lot less. And how do we look at our sport and maybe apply what we have come to call long-term athlete development and some of the basic physical education and sports science that's been around for a long time to our sport? And once we started doing that, again, that's what allowed us to take off with our national team program in Michigan, and then also with our development model. So everything stemmed from my work at the NTDP, and with others, obviously, it's not just me, but looking at player development, it's one of the reasons why I enjoyed coaching there so much. We weren't trying to think about how to win the next hockey game per se. We were trying to think about how to make all of our players better, world-class players, not just good players, but taking really good players and helping them become great players. So
go ahead. I was just going to say, when it was the biggest hurdle, kind of looking outside of USA Hockey and saying, we need to make a change, and I think what great insight to look, obviously globally, look at different countries and see what they're doing. Sounds like that might have been the biggest challenge within.
Well, we also, one of the things that makes our organization special is the fact that we are an NGB under the auspice of the Olympic Committee.
Right.
So constantly we get exposure to our other sports, our other sport governing bodies, to different things that are going on in the sports world in terms of whether it's high performance or grassroots sports. And we were seeing things done in other sports really well. And hockey, for example, just a little bit slower than some of the others to bring some sports science back to the table. You look at track and field, they've been, and U.S. swimming, for example, they've been very involved in these type of things for a long time. And for us, it's just a different way to look at what we've been doing. So we got exposure to this information, and it became pretty obvious that, we might want to make some changes. And then when you compare us to, for example, Finland, who beats us pretty handily in the bronze medal game at the last Olympics, and they're about the size of the state of Michigan, roughly in terms of players and population and everything else. So you go, well, okay, could Michigan itself, for example, field a team to compete against Finland in the Olympics with similar resources? And we know probably not. So
it's really interesting that it came from, I didn't realize quite that it came from first trying to, with the National Team Development Program, develop those players better and more, and realizing that they're different than fully grown adults and things. And then I'll lead into the next question and the next question and the next question. Can you tell us a little bit about, for people that aren't as familiar with it, so the formation of the National Team Development Program you alluded to was a new thing, which kind of led to all this. Can you tell us a little bit about the National Team Development Program, what its purpose was? Because obviously, like you said, you weren't just trying to win a 16-year-old or 18-year-old hockey game. You were trying to develop the player.
Yeah. Well, we were looking for, as an organization, certainly want more long-term success in internationally. Our goal is to win win some world championships. And we were looking at the players that our kids that come up through our development system, when we would go and play other countries, what the differences were in the player pool. And our kids were very deficient, very behind in a lot of respects. Yes, we had one or two players that are certainly at that level, but we had a tough time fielding teams of players, especially when our numbers were, we have several 100,000 more kids than the next country playing, with more rinks, more facilities, more financial resources. So why are they doing what they do versus us? So it was really kind of looking at those things and saying, okay, we just got to be maybe a little bit better. And then when you start taking a step back and thinking about the structure, what you have in place, some of the changes, at least on a micro level, with two standing national teams is a lot easier certainly than making changes globally, but across the board for all of our player population. But you learn lessons. I think I look at it as it was sort of like, say, the Ford Motor Company having a NASCAR race division where you work really, really hard at making the car go very, very fast, and then you figure some things out that help you do that. And it's, okay, well, how do we bring those same things now back to our production models to make them more fuel efficient? And what did you learn from the high performance division that you can certainly share with your masses? And that's how we kind of started with our national team program. So the other side of this, at the same time as the National Hockey League was looking to maybe do more with USA Hockey, and we're very, very fortunate that we have a partnership with the #1 professional league in the world, and they've graciously put forth resources for us to do what it is that we're doing, because it's really an investment into the American player pool, the American population for ice hockey. I mean, the NHL and USA Hockey have two mutual long-term goals, and one is to have more American kids play the sport, and the other is to have more American kids play it really well. 23 of their franchises are located here. You can't grow the game anymore, for example, in Canada. I mean, every little town that has a rink, right? So this is about, where's the growth of the game going to come? Where's the access to new players that are going to populate the league going to come from? And I don't know if you just recently saw, I know both of you are Canadian, and certainly welcome here in the United States at what you guys do, but the NHL now just dipped below 50% Canadians for the first time ever. So globally, the sport is growing, and the U.S. is having a big impact in taking away those percentages of players from other countries. So we're excited about where we're going. Can
you tell us a little bit about then when and how that decision came? Because that's a big, to go from, like you said, to focus on two national teams and really dial in on what those players need at that age group and apply all the latest in sports science, but to take it from there to then launch the American development model on a national scale with staff and all the work that came with that. How did that whole decision and process go down?
Well, it was our staff and some other people putting together this plan and taking it to the National Hockey League and saying, again, they had already stated, look, we want to do more for ice hockey in the United States, and they've earmarked some things that they really want to endorse and support, and our American development model is part of that. So we took this plan to the National Hockey League, and people at the highest end of our sport are the ones that are most familiar at what comes up through the system, and they get a chance to see the end result, and they believe, like we do, that, hey, you know what, we maybe need to make some changes here, and they were willing to support USA Hockey with those changes. So without that support, we probably wouldn't have gotten this off to the ground maybe as fast as we would have, but it's involved a change in everything from our coach education program to the way we have staff now that's actually out in the field trying to work with programs, which is a huge thing for the organization. We haven't had that in the past, and a lot of other sports do. They have highly qualified people from the performance end that are out working with local clubs, trying to help them be a little bit better. We're a predominantly a volunteer youth sport world where it's coached by moms and dads that are willing to give their time, and maybe they don't have the time to go and research all the latest and greatest, and that's where our staff can maybe jump in and help and support. So
most of
that's part of this.
So at the highest levels, when the plan to implement the plan to really, because there's some pretty dramatic changes with the youth programming and as far as implementation with the ADM, from the highest levels, the national team and NHL and those things, there was a lot of support there. Like, where was there with any change, there's resistance. Where was the most kind of resistance as far as getting the program launched?
The resistance is all at the lowest levels of the sport.
Yeah.
Our NCAA coaches, our NHL people that are the professionals, the ones that do player development and coaching for a living, that are fully vested in learning how these things go about, there was no issue with them. It's really the change at the local level, the people that, again, change is difficult for everybody. I mean, no one, if you're comfortable with the way you've been doing things, sometimes it's difficult to wrap your head around maybe something that is just different. And those that are involved in high performance sport, where you're working, if you don't win, you lose your job.
Yeah.
Okay, in those levels of the game, change is the only constant. At the Olympic or NHL level, for example, if teams and organizations are doing the same thing they were, everything the same way as they were 10 years ago, they've already lost.
Yeah.
Everything changes. So again, there's an evolution to what's done. You look at bigger, stronger, faster, healthier, the improvements that are going on at the highest level of our sport. It's really the same thing. They're used to change, so the ability to look at this and go, oh yeah, this makes complete sense.
Ken, you mentioned player deficiencies. What did you see in the American player back then, and have you seen any changes in the American player today and for the future?
Well, I think if you want to look at our players versus everybody else globally, like, we can skate with anybody.
Sure.
And when we show up, our kids are pretty good skaters at the highest level, just physically getting around the rink. I think our technical skills have improved a lot, but our cognitive skills, and we've done this, we've asked our NCAA Division I coaches, for example, across the board, we've asked NHL coaches, people that are involved at that level, and just, what do you see as our deficiencies in our American pool? And they'll basically tell you it's hockey sense. It's the ability to think, read and react on the ice. And, that's something that certainly we need to address and continue to address. Our players are big, strong, fast. I think off-ice training has been a big improvement in our players. Like, I go around the country now, and you'll see almost every team doing some type of dynamic stretch or warm-up before they go and get their gear on at the tiered level of our sport. So there's things that are creeping in that we really like to see, that we're catching up with maybe the rest of the globe, but it's the ability to make decisions in our sport that are really kind of where we need to make the most strides. At least that's what the people at the highest end tell us. What do you think the
biggest structural factors or principles or things that were in place that ADM is working to improve that specific element, I think?
Well, yeah. So just in how we structure practices, a lot of historical practices in ice hockey have been very scripted. I know myself as a younger coach did a lot of scripting of drills where, Billy skates this pattern, gives it to Johnny, gets it back, gives it to Johnny gets it back and then finishes the shot on net. And there may be some skill execution involved in all this, but there's no hockey decision tied to anything that they're doing. So for us, it's really about looking at what we're doing in practice and trying to have our coaches understand that there needs to be some hockey decisions, tied into that skill execution.
Right. And
whether that's through small area games or it's drills that have a live action component to it, that's important. So, and those are the changes we're trying to put into place.
For people that are less familiar with the specifics of the ADM, the American Development Model, what if you had to say, 3 or 4 or less kind of key elements of it, of what it is, what would you say? How would you explain that? Long-term athlete development is what it's based on. And, for the most part, it's really looking at our kids like they're kids of the age that they're at. We kind of say that, a 9-year-old's only a 9-year-old once, a 12-year-old's only a 12-year-old once. So what do they need at those ages and at their ability level to progress? And it's not just chronological age, but it's looking at maybe biological age. In player development, it's not just the physical that we see that's important. It's not just your technical skills, but it's your mental, cognitive skills. It's your social skills. All of this is evolving at different rates in every kid. I like to tell our youth coaches that sometimes they have an even more difficult job than maybe Bruce Boudreau does over at the Ducks there in your area, because he's dealing with fully formed adults. Youth coaches are dealing with kids that are rapidly changing. Just when you kind of figure them out, well, they've grown and developed in another area. So it's a tough job being a youth sports coach. So what are the dangers? What are the dangers of applying adult? So, if I'm going to, when I first started youth coaching, similar to you mentioned, as a young coach, I did the drills I did in college with the youth team. So I played hockey at a decent level. I'm going to do these skills with these kids, right? So what are the dangers of applying the adult model to a certain age group, 10 and under, 12 and under? Why is that problematic?
Well, there's certainly a number of issues with it. Certainly, maybe they're cognitively not ready for some of those things. You may spend more time and effort. Kids aren't dumb. They're going to, pick up whatever you spend a lot of time and effort trying to teach them.
Right.
But you only have so much time and resources. So you want to be efficient with that. Part of it is that pro player, for example, that just got done playing and looking at, what I was doing to maintain myself as a pro athlete is certainly very different than what it does to get to become a pro athlete. You're in a developmental situation versus a performance situation. So the two don't go hand in hand in any way, shape, or form. So for us, it's getting our coaches to understand that, and there are also certain things that are going on with kids at certain times in their development. We know that they're more receptive to acquiring certain things at certain times. It's like maybe the easiest example would be exposing a child to a foreign language or multiple languages. As an adult, yes, I can go back and learn a new language, but I won't learn it anywhere near as fast as the child that's 3, 4, 5 that's being exposed to that other language.
So were you seeing? Oh, sorry. Were you seeing at the national? So at the national team level, when you're at the national development program, and you're getting 16 or 17 or 18-year-olds. So even though you have them 5-6 days a week, twice a day, whatever, as much as you need, were you seeing that there's things that were missed at key times that was so hard to catch up on because it's hard to go back, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We want our kids to have a good skill set, and the ones that show up on our national team program, for the most part, they do. But a lot of the things they should be learning at that age are about the competition side of things, the game management, the learning some tactics and strategies, but also in, how to prepare myself to be an elite athlete. One of the problems we do have is whether it's our youth coaches or families, the players need to learn to take responsibility for their own development. At the end of the day, if you're going to be an elite athlete, it's you and it's your decision to do that. No one else can do it for you. And a lot of times we see our parents and youth coaches trying to do things for our kids, where sometimes they have to sit back and let them fail a little bit so that they can actually learn some real lessons in an environment that's going to allow them to comfortably learn those lessons, where there's less of a price to pay, where they're less under the microscope. So there's certainly a process to development, and the ones that show up on our doorstep, I think maybe the first lesson that kids that show up in Ann Arbor have to learn is how hard they have to work to be successful. A lot of them will show up and they'll say, geez, coach, I'm working harder than I ever have before in my life. And the coaches are saying, yeah, you are. And knowing what we know and where you say you want to end up, it's just not good enough. And they kind of, huh? So we're trying to give them maybe a more realistic perspective on what it takes to truly end up at the high performance level.
Do you think that's coming from, partly, like you said, partly that maybe that someone else was driving them more as a youth, maybe like you said, like their parents are maybe making them wake up for practice, their coach is pushing them to do stuff and they're not taking responsibility, I think because of that, but also I think that the environment has part of that too, where like an environment that seems to focus more on competition and games and winning games than like, hey, okay, stay home and miss practice, but come to the game, or it's more important.
Yeah, well, a little of that. I mean, certainly as a parent, you want to push your child along. I mean, and encourage them to be involved if that's what their goals are. But I think one of the things that we have to change within our American youth sport culture is parents need to understand that they're paying for the lessons. You're not paying for the games. What you're paying for when you show up at ice hockey or your soccer or basketball or whatever it is you're really trying to pay for the quality of instruction that your kids are going to get. It's like school. It's lesson all week, and then test. The games are the test where you actually get a chance to try and put into play what it is that you're working on and learning. So it's a little bit of a backwards thinking mentality with our parents, in that they think that we sign our kids up for these teams and it's about the competition on the weekend, and that's really not what gets their child where their child wants to be in terms of growth and development for the sport. It's what happens every day at your local ice rink. So, games are great, they're important, but you're paying for the lessons the same as what you would be in school.
So if you're a parent and you're making a decision about your kid wants to be a hockey player and your kid loves to play hockey and wants to be the best he can be or she can be, you're making your decisions about the environment your kid's going to be in, not based on, for example, depending on the age group, right? The level of the team or what place the team's in or how good the first line is or whatever like that. You're making decisions on kind of the holistic environment your kids in.
That's right. It's not just the games that are the important part. That's almost secondary for development. Don't get me wrong. The games are important. It's why we play. I mean, they're fun and exciting, and we can challenge ourselves. But the majority of development happens during practice.
What are the key things? What are the key things to look for a training environment then? So if I want to put my kid I want to make sure it's a good training environment. What am I looking for?
Well, that changes at every age.
Yeah.
For our youngest players, it's really trying to acquire the sports skills that are going to allow them to be successful, some physical skills. I mean, we're a different sport than a lot of others because you have to learn to skate. The locomotion is different. You show up to soccer, a kid can basically run already, so you can put them into some tactics and those things, and learning those parts. Maybe a little quicker than you can in our sport. So you have to learn to skate. You have to learn to handle the puck. You have to be comfortable with the puck. It's the same in soccer, where comfort on the ball for a little kid is important. So we need some basic skills to be able to get going. And then that 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 is that prime window for skill acquisition. So those are areas that you should be doing a lot of that. But then there's the tactics and the strategies that go along with playing the sport. So it's probably the single most important thing from a parent perspective evaluating is the practice has to resemble the game. There has to be live action components that are going on. May not be look exactly like the game, but there has to be decisions tied to skill execution. Maybe for little kids, it's tag on the rink. Okay, well, how you think? Well, tag. But tag is the basis for all ball sports. I have the ball, and someone else is trying to come get me, and I'm trying to evade them. Right? That is ball sports. Whether it's football, it's basketball, it's soccer, it's ice hockey, it's lacrosse. So those are basic elements of read and locomotion that get tied in. So it doesn't look like hockey necessarily, but there's a lot of hockey being played in tag. And then it certainly changes at the older levels where it becomes more game situational role type of games. But again, live action. There should be some unscriptedness to things that are going on.
Red flags. If I'm a parent and I walk into and I evaluate practice and I see younger players, a lot of standing in lines or a lot of kind of really coach controlled, waiting for permission to go and to low engagement. These are all kind of red flags.
Those are red flags for player development. It just in basic learning, we know that repetition is hugely important. We learn by physically doing things. So, if you're standing in line, you're not learning a whole lot. So it's really important that kids are active, involved when they're on the ice. So getting quality repetitions and then quality feedback. Those are two really important things for learning.
Along the lines of feedback, there a lot of times I think there's a perception of the coach of this kind of in control, loud,
right,
running the show. Can you speak to a little bit of that perception?
Well, players are getting feedback from a lot of different things, not just the coach or the adult telling them. They're getting intrinsic feedback from the play that's happening around them, from their teammates, from they make a bad pass. I pass the puck across the front of my own net and it gets picked off and put in the back of the net. There's feedback there, right? I mean, the coach doesn't need to come over and tell the kid, hey, Johnny, don't pass across that. I mean, he's figuring those things out. So this over instruction doesn't mean that there isn't instruction going on. And there's a danger here in youth sport where people extrapolate things to an extreme. We hear this all the time. Let the game be the teacher. Well, that's true. We want to put the kids in the environment, in a game-like environment for them to learn, but that doesn't preclude our coaches from getting involved and giving them feedback. Whether it's, hey, you got to move to support, hey, create a lane, different things that are going to allow them coaching-wise to make progress. So the coach isn't just not saying anything and letting them play all the time. There is feedback in there, which is important.
Where's that line of where feedback can be over the top? So for example, I guess if you're talking about decision making and things, when the feedback takes away the decisions, where kids are waiting for the coach to tell them what to do, or worried if they're going to make the wrong decision, right? That's where it becomes right.
No, and we want to coach in the affirmative. A lot of poor youth coaches spend a lot of time telling their kids, well, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this. When, if you want them to tell them what you want them to do, be concise, be specific, give them some feedback, and then let them go try it. And because we know that players learn through some trial and error as well. It's like learning to drive a car. Things aren't perfect the first time they get behind the wheel, right? Learning to ride a bike, you're going to fall down a few times before you get up and get back on the bike and actually ride it proficiently. So they're experiencing some things by feel, by being placed in that environment and making decisions and finding what works specifically for them, because every player is a little different. So there's a balance certainly between overcoaching and undercoaching, but the let the game be the teacher isn't totally accurate. I mean, there's still coaching that's going on.
Right, right. I want to switch gears a little bit and go back to the ADM a little bit. Can you tell us? I know it's been what, 6 years now, and there was some resistance to get it implemented at first, but it's been really growing with a lot of momentum. And can you tell us a little bit about what's happening with it at a national level with the USOC and with sports and your role there?
Well, we're very excited because the Olympic Committee has adopted the ADM for all sports. I mean, it was a real simple decision. Everybody was sort of operating in their own little silos anyway. If you look at what was going on in swimming or U.S. soccer or, other sports, volleyball, we were all sort of doing this and progressing in the same direction. And this has sort of formalized the relationship, and where we're all trying to support each other a little bit more and send the appropriate message out within the American youth sports culture, because that's really where, if you look at all of us together collectively, that's where we're a little off. It's our youth sports culture that's kind of gone off the rails a little bit, and it will take sort of a combined effort from all of our sports to get people maybe pointed back in the right direction. So we're really excited because they've taken our logo, our messaging, and we've sort of formalized the relationship between all of our NGBs, and the information's going out there nationally now. So it's kind of cool. That's
great, because I think you mentioned something there that I think was key. At first, like even for us implementing the ADM model, there's a lot of logistical changes. For example, practice to game ratios, the way you share the ice at practices, the travel schedules, competitions. So there's all these things, but then you realize as you're implementing it, there's the deeper cultural issues. So ADM can often be seen as like the technical differences of how you run a practice or these types of things, but really it digs into something deeper than that, right? A deeper culture and a deeper.
Sure.
Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's certainly lots of different ways to do things. We want everyone to have freedom to adapt to the kids that they have, to adapt to the teams that they have, because that's just good coaching. But for us, there's some really basic principles. We talked about repetition already. If kids aren't getting repetitions, well, then it's going to be difficult for them to learn. We have some limitations in our sport through our physical resources in terms of ice time. So it's how do we use those resources efficiently? As long as our coaches and people understand the basic principles behind the ADM, then they're free to go ahead and find things that are going to work well for them within that structure. There's lots of methods that work. If you understand methods, you can probably do things one way and maybe get off the rails, but if you understand the underlying principles there, then your methods are always going to be sort of bang on and be developmentally sound. So that's all we're really looking for.
Do you think one of those principles is that what I think I've seen is the ability to look at not my kids or my team or what development of this season versus the big picture. So we're trying to put together a good team for this season, or want to be on a good team this season versus what do I want out of hockey or youth sports for my kid or for these players for the next 8 years,
Sure. I mean, well, we said this already. A 9-year-old's only a 9-year-old once. So there are things that they need at that particular time. So if we're doing the right thing for the kids at each age, it all sort of starts to come together later on. But if we skip out on a lot of different building blocks along the way, we end up with a whole lot of players at a much older level that don't have the technical skills, don't have the right tools to be able to succeed. So this is really about a better sequencing of what it is that we're focusing on. I mean, you can get together and recruit a pretty good team at 10 years old, right? And run around, barnstorm, play 150 games, hardly ever practice, and you're going to probably have a very good record. Yeah. And as the coach, pat yourself on the back. But did you actually make any of your players better? We see this we see this happen a lot of times in youth sports where clubs and teams individual teams will aggregate players and then do all the wrong things. And then 2 years later, none of those kids happen to be playing at that high level anymore because they missed out on what they were supposed to get. So this, it's called long-term athlete development for a reason. You can't speed farm. You got to plant your crops, you got to water them, you got to fertilize them, you got to give them sunlight. There's a process to all that for them to become, what you want later on before you can actually see the fruits of your labors.
One of the other things I love about the program and what I've learned as I dig into it more and I step back and I evaluate is that, like you said, you don't know, the 10-year-old kid who's the best kid in the state or whatever at that time, we don't know what they're going to look like when they're 18, and we don't know that
That's
kid.
right.
A kid who came over from soccer and just went to the learn to skate class when he's 10 years old could end up being the best player of anyone. So as a club, we want to make sure all those kids love the sport and are playing as long as possible, right? Because like you mentioned, at some point they're going to decide if they want to be the highest level player they can be. And if we burn them out or make them want to quit or not give them what they need at certain levels, we're actually we've taken that opportunity away from them by constantly narrowing down our player pool. Right?
It's hard to be a good 18-year-old if you quit the sport, when you're 9, right? So, and our sport, we are a late development sport. We're a late specialization sport. This is proven out. If you look at all of our NHL players, our American NHLers, they're all multi-sport athletes when they were younger. And most of them were not the superstar when they were younger. The Sidney Crosbys of the world are the one-off aberrations. Like a player that plays for the Ducks that I'm familiar with, Ryan Kessler. I mean, Ryan at 15 was cut from every major program in Metro Detroit, thought about quitting. And here he was 3 years ago, the Selke Award winner in the NHL, scoring 41 goals and being the league's best defensive player. Our Olympic team is filled with guys that at 15, 16 years of age, nobody thought they were going to be what they were. When you talk to NHL players and ask them, well, how were you when you were 11? And they'll tell you, well, yeah, there were probably 5 or 6 kids on my team that were better than I was. We don't know. The NHL draft, 17% of the NHL is undrafted. It means that 1 out of every player that's on the ice for your team at a time skating in a National Hockey League game was undrafted. And the statistics, and that's picking players at 18 and 19. So they do a pretty good job of determining who's good in that snapshot window of time. But in human development's messy. It doesn't happen in a straight line. It's all over the place. And there's with younger players, there's certainly different motivations and their enjoyment and who's persistent, who wants to put the time and effort in, and other interests come along too. You just never know. Hard to predict.
Yeah, you mentioned at like 18, you said, of course, the NHL has millions of dollars invested into trying to identify the top players and not trying to look at who's going to be the top players, their character, their work ethic, their family they come from, all this stuff, and they still have a hard time getting it right. So the danger of labeling that 10-year-old or 12-year-old, oh, this kid's good and this kid's not good, that's pretty damaging, right?
Well, when we statistically, USA Hockey, we can look back and we can, since every player basically registers with us, we can go back in time and we can look at a youth association or a youth program, and we can tell when players have showed up in that organization, what organizations they've played for along the way. And, we have some tier 1 programs out there, AAA, whatever, that you'll notice that they run 10-year-old teams, but none of their 16-year-old players, or maybe one 16-year-old player, played on their 10-year-old team. Well, wait a second. Where's the development, right? All those players did something else, right? So trying to predict who's going to be the best at those older ages is really, really tough. Anyone that tells you they have the crystal ball, just lying.
So what should be the focus then? Those young, what
Focuses on development, focuses on helping kids be better, treating them all, exceptionally well, giving them what they need, being more athlete-centered. I mean, this is part of the problem I think we have in team sports. At the high performance end, coaches are very good at not coaching teams. They coach individuals in a group setting. It's really what it is. We're getting that collective, but we're working with individuals, and they understand that. Whereas a lot of our youth programs and youth coaches, they just see the team. So now you're coaching to averages, or worse, maybe you're coaching to the lowest common denominator, instead of treating every kid like the individual that they are. And in team sports, that's tough sometimes because we group kids together, but the coaches have to be thinking about the individuals and their individual development if you want to maximize overall performance.
Well, yeah, you mentioned like athlete-centered versus because also that if you're focused on the team, then you're probably focused on the team success, which means you're really focused on the adult goals, right?
That's right.
Team winning,
That's right.
Whatever, right? Yeah.
That's right.
Rather than the development of each athlete, right?
And that's why I enjoyed my time in Ann Arbor so much. Simply, it was 100% focusing on the developmental environment for our players. And oh, by the way, when you do that, well, look at where they're at now. The sort of the winning all takes care of itself, and we get lots of players that are turning out to be very good at the highest end. So that's why we do what we do. So it's
going well. Obviously, it's been a battle. What's coming kind of in the future, and how do you see things continue to progress with the American Development Model and USOC?
Well, we started off at 8 and under hockey, trying to get that environment right because it's the entry point for our sport. Playing cross ice. How we kind of structured some things, and now it's really about we moved into 10U and 12U, and for us it's now kind of focusing on a little bit on the older age groups, trying to get in with those programs and show them where they can be better at what they do. That's been a lot of fun. We're starting to make some progress there. Most of the guys that are in it at those levels have been around the sport for a long time. And again, the older you get, the more advanced the players and the more advanced the coaches, the easier it is to implement our ADM because, they get that change is just part of the fabric of what it is you do as a coach.
Do you find there's much connection? So ideally, all of these levels and age groups are connected, right? So you're working on this one thing, and then you're moving like an 8-year-old, and you're moving up to the 10 under age group, and the program slightly is adjusting to those kids. Are you finding that a lot of these, one of the challenges is that a lot of programs are kind of disjointed, where maybe they are doing a great job once the kids hit the 14 coach, who's a really experienced guy, studies and takes it seriously and does it full time. But underneath that, they're doing like the same problem you guys have with the National Development Program, where you're inheriting players that didn't get at the younger ages.
Well, that's why we started at 8U and trying to get the environment right for everybody, and that's been working very well. Across the board, what's really interesting is, if you look at USA Hockey's retention numbers, for example, kids staying with our sport, we're up in every single age category, which is fantastic because we don't add really new players for the most part to ice hockey at 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 years of age. Our entry point for the most part is 8 and under and maybe a little bit at 10 and under.
Yeah. Because
after a while, there's no place for that beginner. Unfortunately, there's limited numbers of opportunities for beginners to sort of jump into the sport at those older ages. Not that they can't turn out to be really, really good if we had places for them. It's just our structure doesn't allow it. So for us, when we see retention at every level, that's a really good thing. So it just adds to our growth of the sport in general.
And I think on the same lines of that, you've seen, I know with the model, there's 20 model associations now in the country. Yeah. And you've seen even what are the retention numbers like there? You've seen them even higher. Yeah,
they're much higher than the average, which is kind of what we would expect.
Yeah. Why do you attribute that to?
Well, if you just talk to the people that are involved in those organizations across the country, a lot of it tends to be a lot of happy kids, a lot of happy families, people that see, this is a process. They've gained a lot of information from our staff and from the people that are on the ground locally involved in those clubs. And, again, the goal is really to provide the very best, the best quality youth sport experience. Doesn't matter what sport it is. We want ice hockey to be the very best youth sport experience possible.
Awesome. Ken,
we got
a question come in.
I got a question.
Yeah.
Yeah. What age do you start strength and conditioning? Start actually young, but what's strength and conditioning? The formal side of it, do you need weights? No, body weight exercises are certainly fantastic. Even our national team program, our kids that are 16 and 17-year-old elite athletes, a significant portion of what they do is still within the body weight realm. Now we add Olympic lifts and those other things, but strength training is always a part of what kids are doing. They just might be hidden a little bit into some other exercises, but no, strength training is.
When would they start, Ken, when would they start the weight training program? That's after the peak height velocity, right? So it's dependent.
Well, again, strength training, weights, all of that, it's when they're developmentally ready. Some kids may be developmentally ready for that type of training earlier based on the amount of work that they've put in ahead of time. Kids are going to learn at the younger ages. A lot of it's about motor control, motor learning for them, quality movement skills, being able to move confidently, in a variety of environments. And strength is a contributing factor into how kids do that. So, again, all woven together.
Right.
But that's why we have off-ice. We have off-ice included in our ADM for 8-year-olds.
Right.
9-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 12-year-olds. It just doesn't maybe look as much like the formal go to the gym as it would for high school age players.
Right. Great. Thanks. So Hugh, hopefully that answers your question. I know admkids.com is the website where you have it's a lot of the off-ice practice plans and things, and the USA Hockey mobile coaches app I know has a ton of stuff too for kids to work on things in different age groups.
Yeah, and for you guys with the Wildcats, we'll have in December Tomas Perek from the Czech Republic, Dr. Perek. He's written over a dozen books on youth athlete development and physical education, and he'll be there, hopefully helping you guys out with running some dryland training with your little kids.
Awesome.
In December. So
we can't wait. We can't wait.
Yeah, Tomas is very good.
Great. Yeah, I'll add that, Hugh. Okay, great. Well, Ken, thanks. We're almost at an hour here. Paul, did you have any final questions or comments?
Just one general one is how important, and I think I know the answer to this, but just for the people there, how important is the fun factor for kids in this whole game of ice hockey?
Without it, they don't come back.
Yeah.
So first and foremost, we have to make sure that we're keeping things fun, entertaining, engaging for kids, because youth sport that's what it's supposed to be. The training is sort of maybe the wrong term for it. It's the right term, but it's the wrong term. It just doesn't maybe look like some of the formal training that goes on at some of the older ages. But kids have to enjoy what they're doing, and that fun and enjoyment changes as they get older across the board. What's fun for an NHL player isn't necessarily fun for an 8-year-old, but it's important that they're both enjoying what they're doing. Those older players, they need to enjoy seeing themselves get better as they progress, putting time and effort in. There's fun and enjoyment and reward in that. Whereas kids, maybe the fun has to be a little bit more immediate, But
Yeah, that's great. It's interesting because you always hear the NHL interviews with the top players. They talk about how their love of the game and focusing on the process and all those things that we're talking about the younger ages is they're talking about the NHL level, and we're trying to educate the youth and the parents out there down at our levels.
Yeah, it's really, really tough to do anything long term like that without enjoying what you do.
Yeah, great.
Well, thanks, Ken, so much for your time. We're hoping we can get you on again soon to dig into some more sports science. We know you spend a lot of time on the U.S. Olympic Committee and with people from all over the world and experts and things, and love to get into some details with some of our other coaches and things as well, and some questions soon when you have time too. Sure.
No, I appreciate the time. You guys are doing a great job, and happy to support what you guys do. And we're looking forward to seeing you in December. So.
All right. Great.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Have a great day. I'll send you the recording afterwards.
All right.
All right. Thanks.
Well, Ben, thank you.
Thank you.